Fidei.email, you don't need to compromise faith to participate in the modern world. Instead of pushing ads and invasive practices that conflict with Catholic values, we built Fidei to reclaim technology for Christendom. When you use Fidei.email, you declare your commitment to technology that defends Christian tradition. Join Fidei.email today and use technology to advance Christendom.
When Cardinal Wilton Gregory was made the Cardinal Archbishop of Washington, D.C., we certainly commentators talked about him some, especially during Traditionis Custodes, when he was the Cardinal Archbishop who put that evil document into practice and enforced it. But he didn't make the news all the time. That seems to not be the case with Cardinal Robert McElroy, who succeeded Cardinal Wilton Gregory in the last month in the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C., in the Imperial See. He was clearly chosen for that office because he is the most cunning and the brightest of the modernist stars. He is a gifted writer, very intelligent, and very dangerous. They chose him to be the point person because he's also an unwavering Bergoglian. He is the man who got the American bishops to informally replace the sacrifice to Moloch as the preeminent issue for the church in America, with migration as the issue of the day. He is clearly a force to be reckoned with. And it's why it's interesting now that the counter push has begun. We saw this with the story of Rachel Mastrogiacomo, who posted, or who has come public with her, the accounts of Cardinal Robert McElroy helping to hide the priest who did evil, unspeakable things involving sins of the flesh to her. How he prepared her for a long time for that, the priest in question, not Cardinal McElroy. And how Cardinal Robert McElroy has this track record of hiding priests like this. And as he continues to become a much more important public figure, we now are getting more pushback on him. And this is an open letter published at John 1837, the Substack. I'll put a link to it in today's show notes at returntotradition.org. Look at this provocative headline. McElroy, Sipe, and McCarrick's clones. Will McElroy dismiss these allegations like he did those from Richard Sipe? 10 years ago, Richard Sipe was a voice, and he still is a voice active, I think, in the exposing of the deeds of McCarrick and men like McCarrick, the hierarchy of the church pushing these sinful priests out of into the shadows, trying to keep this entire problem under wraps because they refuse to acknowledge the real source of this. And it's quite simple. Men with the inclination of James Martin should not be in the priesthood. The nature of that sin and the nature of the McCarrick problem are so closely related that they should not be in the priesthood. And the solution to this is not having married priests either. The number one place you are going to find the McCarrick kind of problem in civilization today is in the home. It's not the solution. The solution is virtue. To have men who live according to the norms of the church and who have inclinations according to the laws of God in the priesthood. Men of virtue. Men who are pursuing virtue. And no one can say that that was the case with Cardinal McCarrick or any of his countless spiritual children. Robert McElroy here, you're going to see in this letter, is credibly accused of having hidden many of these people away. This is the pushback to McElroy. When you become as high-profile a public figure as Robert McElroy is now, it is only natural that those who object to what you're doing are going to push back. And he has chosen to wade into the most contentious policy debate of our day to make the church a partisan organization, or at least attempt to. And he will fail in that because the church is above the political fray. At least it should be. Here's the open letter. I submit this to you for your own discernment. Dear Cardinal Robert McElroy, on April 22nd, 2008, my friend and fellow Californian advocate for those harmed by wicked priests, Richard Sipe, posted an open letter online to Pope Benedict XVI entitled, Your Holiness, I have the evidence. Cardinal McCarrick is a James Martin type. Please act. It was the publication of this letter that many believe moved Benedict to have restrictions placed upon McCarrick to prevent him from engaging in further evil behavior. Following the 2013 election of Pope Francis, when McCarrick no longer seemed restricted in his ministry, Sipe expanded on what he wrote 8 years earlier to Benedict in a letter which he had you legally served, dated July 28th, 2016. Meaning he had this notice legally served to Cardinal McElroy. Sipe's letter reported McCarrick and other church officials for engaging in and hiding up these evil deeds. A trained investigator was led to conclude that you, Cardinal Christophe Pierre, and Pope Francis all worked together to hide Sipe's incriminating report with the help of attorney Jeffrey Lena, who made no mention of Sipe's 2016 letter in his whitewashed McCarrick report. The truth is that you, even before being approached by Sipe, were well aware, like most U.S. bishops, that numerous seminarians and priests attested, quote, to propositions, harassment, or having engaged in unnatural deeds with McCarrick, who had stated, I do not like to sleep alone. While you were reported in America Magazine to have passed on Sipe's letter to the proper governing bodies in Rome, you later contradicted that report by telling a National Catholic reporter journalist that you, quote, declined to pass along unsubstantiated hearsay allegations. Lest you accuse me of passing on, quote, unsubstantiated hearsay allegations, for you to communicate to Cardinal Pierre for Pope Francis, who alone has the authority to discipline bishops who engage in or cover up these deeds, know that the allegations in this letter are based on testimony found in sworn court affidavits and the word and evidence of witnesses whom I have personally interviewed. Let's pause here. Why is this important? Because if he's hiding this, that's a crime. That's why. He's shielding these men from justice. That's why this is a crime. A crime in a secular sense. This is a crime. It's also a crime against God. I shouldn't have to explain that to you. But yeah, McElroy may be in some serious trouble if this picks up any traction. Let's continue. Hold on. That should have shared, but it did not. Let's try that again. There we go. Like Sipe, who identified Ted McCarrick, Roger Mahoney, John Neinstedt, Robert H. Brahm, Thomas Leons, Raymond Bolin, and John Eidenstick in his July 28th, 2016 letter, I would like to identify 6 prelates whom I assert are guilty of engaging in or hiding away these evil deeds with the most young or vulnerable adults. The 6 accused prelates are Cardinal Wilton Gregory, Archbishop George Lucas, Archbishop William Lori, Cardinal Tim Dolan, Cardinal Christophe Pierre, and yourself, Cardinal Robert McElroy. Here's their photos. Gregory and Brees. Just as Buffalo Bishop Richard Malone unjustly suspended Father Richard Bernat, who reported how Malone hid away for Auxiliary Bishop Edward Gross, Father Dennis Reeder, and other evil diocesan clergy, so too did Cardinal Wilton Gregory unjustly suspend Father Michael Brees for confronting Gregory, who hid credible allegations that Washington Fathers Adam Park and Carter Griffin harassed and preyed upon vulnerable seminarians at the North American College in Rome and at St. John Paul II Seminary in Washington, D.C. Just as Richard Sipe personally spoke with former seminarians who alleged being preyed upon by McCarrick, so too did I speak with Carl Disher and other former seminarians and priests who alleged being harmed or reprised against for reporting these deeds on the part of Fathers Park and Griffin. You hid away in San Diego the evil deeds reported by Sipe and the satanic ritual harm done to Rachel Mastrogiacomo reported to Monsignor Stephen Callahan. Will you now hide away the harm done to the most vulnerable seminarians that were reported to Father George Stewart, the Episcopal Vicar for Canonical Services, as found in this linked email of February 11th, 2025? As the current Archbishop of Washington, will you continue your predecessor's legacy of keeping in ministry those accused of doing these things under your supervision, like Park and Griffin, while supporting the unjust suspension of morally courageous whistleblowers like Father Brees? In other words, he not only covered for priests, he punished those who tried to do the right thing, who followed the church's protocols on this problem. He actively covered for the monsters and collars. Why would he do that? Is it just for the prestige of the church? Is it because fear of loss of money? Or is there something else going on? back to this. Lucas and Rowers. The second prelate whom I feel should be laicized or excommunicated is Omaha Archbishop George Lucas, who just retired after being reported for engaging in unnatural acts with Father Peter Harmon at a clerical group synodal encounter, we'll call it, in Springfield, Illinois. In reports found credible by a former FBI special agent in charge, Lucas was later reported in 2024 for attacking in the sinful fleshly way a Hispanic high school seminarian at St. Louis Preparatory Seminary in the late 1980s. In addition to being accused of preying upon men in a fleshly way and James Martin type misconduct, Lucas was also charged with hiding away the evil deeds done to Cynthia Yesko by two Springfield priests, and of hiding away the satanic ritual harm done to Lisa Rowers and another very young woman when they were not even teenagers yet in Elgin, Nebraska, by Father Dennis Hanneman. The hiding away of this is uncontestable based on the fact that Lucas never attempted to speak with a second woman, whom Rowers identified as also having been harmed by the priest Hanneman. Then Lori and Wallawender. The third prelate whom I maintain is guilty of hiding this, like a number of U.S. papability identified by SNAP, is Baltimore Archbishop William Lori. In November 2019, the parents of former Baltimore seminarian Carl Disher reported to Lori that their son was essentially approached by then John Paul II Seminary Vice Rector, Father Carter Griffin, as well as by then Baltimore Transitional Deacon Christopher Pinto. While Disher was coerced into leaving formation, Pinto was never ordained a priest and was discontinued by the Baltimore Diocese. In addition to hiding away these evil deeds, Lori also continued to hide how former seminarian Wisław Valavender was given substances to cloud his mind and then assaulted in the worst way by the late Monsignor Edward Staub in Severna Park. Wallawender's harm was initially hidden away by Cardinal William Keeler and Father William Sims, as documented in a conciliation agreement. Sims, who was appointed by Keeler to look into the actual problem, had faced multiple of these kind of evil lawsuits filed against him, meaning lawsuits about evil deeds, both before and after his whitewashed investigation. When Lori was presented with indisputable evidence that Wallawender's the harm done to him was hidden away, he had his chancellor attorney Diane Barr, write Wallawender saying it was impossible to determine what events actually led to your dismissal. These stories are really incredible, honestly. To this day, Lori and the Archdiocese continue to refuse to compensate Wallawender for the physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual harm he endured. And here's now Cardinal Dolan. The fourth prelate who is also escaping discipline despite hiding away these deeds is New York Cardinal Tim Dolan. When former New York seminarian Anthony Gorgia refused to remain silent after witnessing people being prepared and receiving reports that seminarians are being preyed upon by Pontifical North American College Vice Rector Father Adam Park, Dolan coerced Gorgia into leaving formation. He and numerous other corroborating witnesses filed sworn affidavits before the Supreme Court of the state of New York, documenting how Dolan and former NAC rector, Father Peter Harmon, hid away credible allegation of Park's evil misconduct. Harmon himself was accused of engaging in McCarrick-type acts at a synodal encounter within Springfield in Illinois Bishop George Lucas. Both Park and Harmon stepped down from their posts at the NAC after the sworn testimonies against them were made public. Dolan's own hiding away of these things are well documented to span decades through his appointments at the Apostolic Nunciature in Washington, D.C., as rector of the NAC in Rome, as auxiliary bishop of St. Louis, as archbishop of Milwaukee, and as archbishop of New York. In addition to hiding these things for Park and Harmon, Dolan continues to hide things for New York priests like Monsignor John Paddock, Monsignor Thomas Deravin, Father Donald Timone, and Father George Sears, and others who remain in ministry despite having these things said about them and being named in various lawsuits. And of course, the fifth is the nuncio to the United States. Let's get down here though to McElroy. The final prelate whom I believe is guilty of hiding these things away is none other than yourself, Cardinal Robert McElroy. Insofar as one of the main qualifications for being made a bishop in the Roman Catholic Church today is one's proven ability to hide these things away, you certainly have proven yourself capable in this regard by the way you dealt with the harm done to Rachel Mastrogiacomo by Father Jacob Bertrand, as well as how you hid away the cases of 12 seminarians and priests that were reported to you by the late psychotherapist Richard Sipe. Not only did you hide away these things for McCarrick and Bertrand while you were Bishop of San Diego, you also hid away my August 28th, 2018 report about how I was retaliated against by then Archbishop Edwin O'Brien, whom I accused of underreporting and hiding away these deeds in the Archdiocese of the military services in the United States. While most people know that you were ordained by San Francisco Archbishop John Quinn in 1980, who made you a secretary in 1982, and who made you the vicar general in 1995, they were never told to this day why your friend and former San Diego auxiliary bishop, John Dolan, left the priesthood for 2 years before later being named the Bishop of Phoenix. He was not reported to have left on sabbatical or for health reasons. And this is talking John Dolan, not Timothy Dolan, different people. One San Diego Catholic commented, John Dolan's departure did not involve a relationship with a woman. You may wish to know that your very close personal friendship with the late Archbishop John Quinn, who was also a very close friend of Father Nicholas Revels, has provided the inspiration for a screenplay entitled Den of Iniquity. U.S. Marine Corps veteran and former San Diego diocesan seminarian Mark Brooks, who was harmed by Reveles, recounted before his untimely passing how he caught Quinn and Reveles, seminarians and priests, watching illicit, dirty films of a James Martin type together. The screenplay deals with a Marine Corps veteran who is unjustly dismissed from a Catholic seminary after reported having sinfully been harmed in this way. The Marine teams up with an attractive lawyer to uncover a trail of this kind of moving around of people for these kind of deeds, and of course, removing people from this mortal coil that threatens the Cardinal's aspirations of becoming the first American Pope. As I request that you forward this report to Cardinal Pierre for Pope Francis while providing proof of receipt and corroboration, I trust that all three of you, including a number of cardinals accused of hiding these things away by the survivors' networks of those harmed by priests, or SNAP, will all discover that Den of Iniquity includes a scene with, quote, Rich Doyle, a.k.a. Richard Sipe, that is designed to discourage Catholic clergy from engaging in these kinds of deeds of the flesh and James Martin misconduct with both U.S. citizens and those illicitly in the country. For those of you who get annoyed when I have to swap words around, the subject of this makes it unequivocal that you have to. But this is going public. Richard Sipe passed away. I keep forgetting that he passed away, but pray for the repose of his soul, if you would. This is going public. They're giving this to the nuncio, who's listed here. This is going on the record that all of them have been given this, that Pope Francis is going to be at least given this document to see what will happen with this. But I'm the cynical type who will say that nothing will happen with this, because Pope Francis's track record means that he should actually be listed here too. I know that's hard for some people to accept, but it shouldn't be, especially when you consider this. Francis has been very active lately. Francis has been very active in filling out the vacant seats in the American episcopate. Among the bishops in the United States, there have been a great many vacancies, a great number of bishops who are beyond the age of retirement who are still serving in their dioceses because there's no one to replace them. We learned last fall, right after the presidential election, that there was a meeting between Robert McElroy, Blaise Supich, and Joseph Tobin, I believe it was, in Rome with Francis. And the subject was the American election and what to do about those vacant seats. They were linked together. And now we have more stories of either friends of Cardinal Supich or his creations themselves, his own former auxiliary bishops, being given promotions. They are remaking the American church in the image and likeness of Cardinal Supich. So the first of these. This will sting for some people. Headline from LifeSite. Pope Francis replaces Archbishop Naumann with bishop who opposed banning so-called Catholic politicians who support the sacrifice to Moloch from communion. Pope Francis accepted the resignation of staunch anti-Moloch Archbishop Naumann and is replacing him with Bishop Sean McKnight, who opposed a prohibition on communion for these anti-Catholic politicians. Bishop McKnight is a creature of Cardinal Supich. A lot of people don't want to hear that, but it's simply the truth. I remember posting this on X yesterday. Another creature of Supich. People are like, how could you say that? Well, all you have to do is look at his track record here, and you'll see that he is a fellow traveler with Cardinal Supich. Here are the details from LifeSite. Quote, Pope Francis accepted the resignation of Kansas City Archbishop Joseph Naumann today and named Bishop Sean McKnight of Jefferson City as his replacement, according to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. Archbishop Naumann offered his resignation upon turning 75 years old last June, as is customary. His replacement comes shortly after he spent the last few weeks battling against Satanists who wanted to host a blasphemous black mass in the state capitol building. The devil has no power over us, he wrote in the Archdiocesan online media site, The Leaven. Let us throw the devil back into his natural state of confusion and despair by celebrating the beauty and joy of God's merciful, faithful love. He also celebrated a packed mass the same day as a sacrilegious event, with around 400 people attending, as previously reported by LifeSite News. The faithful prelate has been an outspoken voice for the most vulnerable and most young. He previously chaired the USCCB's committee on basically defending the most vulnerable. While Archbishop Naumann has been a strong opponent of allowing politicians to support the sacrifice to Moloch to receive Holy Communion, McKnight has taken a different stance. In 2021, the Jefferson City bishop signed a letter urging the USCCB to halt discussion of prohibiting the Eucharist to those politicians who want that evil practice to be legal and are Catholic. To change hearts and minds, we cannot merely threaten punishment, McKnight wrote at the time. The Holy Father has placed a counter, dialogue, honesty, collaboration at the heart of his approach to public conversation, not confrontation or threats, and as repeatedly indicated, he is not in favor of using the Eucharist as a means to discipline politicians. It's incredible. This man is incredible. It's truly incredible how brazen they are with this, especially this next part here. Quote, that year, McKnight falsely claimed that Catholics have a moral responsibility to get the solution to the 2020 affliction and directed priests not to grant religious exemptions to request for that solution, which have been linked to, of course, all manner of evil. McKnight also caused an uproar on social media when he released guidelines for the reverent celebration of Holy Mass, which included reiterating the USCCB's opposition to some well-known but possibly heretical hymns, such as All Are Welcome. The USCCB had previously determined these hymns were insufficient and sound doctrine and prohibited based on credible accusations of evil things against the composer, referring to allegations against composers David Haas, Cesaro Gabaran, and Ed Conlon. After backlash from liberals last October, he announced the Diocese of Jefferson City would have a year-long synodal discussion about music and the liturgy. End quote. This is the man who is now replacing Archbishop Naumann, one of the better ones. He's a creature of Supich, without question. And to a lesser degree, we have another one. He's not exactly a creature of Supich. There's no direct connection between them except one event, and that was an award given by Supich to this man here. But we go to our Sunday Visitor News headline: Pope Francis appoints new Bishop of Providence. Bishop Bruce Lewandowski is introduced to the Diocese of Providence, Rhode Island, at a media conference April 8th. Pope Francis appointed the bishop to the head of the Diocese of Providence, which has a total population of 1.09 million Catholic people, of which about 600,000 are Catholic. This is another one, another Bergoglian. They are moving rapidly to fill the ranks of the bishops in the United States, the vacancies, and there are plenty of those vacancies. This is what's coming. It's actually, I think, a sign that Francis knows he has limited time left, because the United States, for whatever reason, is a stumbling block to the Bergoglians. You have the most traditionally minded Catholics here, except maybe France per capita, but in raw numbers, it's the United States. It's where your voices are publicly opposing them. And it's where a lot of bishops are just a little too conservative in the post-conciliar sense for what they want to do to the Catholic Church. And so now they're moving to replace them. The loss of Archbishop Naumann is bad. Very, very bad. I see a super chat from From Faust, thank you very much. I have a theory that Christ may have chosen Judas specifically to show a bad priest doesn't disprove his church. His church, hail to Christ the King. Yes, Judas is clearly a cautionary tale for every bishop and every priest, and for the laity to recognize that yes, there will be bad priests in the flock, or there will be bad shepherds, and that you don't leave the church because of bad shepherds. Bad shepherds, if they don't repent, then Judas's ultimate fate is pretty obvious for everybody. But this is what they're facing, and we're getting the spiritual children of Judas Iscariot here. That is clear. But I'm curious what you think about this. Are you surprised to the slightest by stories like this one? Does it surprise you when you see because these aren't the only ones recently. There were a few other bishops made who are all connected in some way, directly or by small degrees of separation from Cardinal Supich. They are filling the vacancies with like-minded men. Bishop Lewandowski is a big proponent of, a big ally to Cardinal Robert McElroy on migration. They are spiritual children. They are spiritual brethren together on this. So let me just give you a little detail on that. From the article, quote, "The bishop often smiled as he spoke of his philosophy of leadership, getting closer to the people he serves, and joked about how those he encountered often stumble over the pronunciation of his last name, pronounced Lewandowski, leading many to call him Bishop Bruce. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I never expected to be coming to such a beautiful place. I'm very grateful," said Bishop Lewandowski, who has served in New York, Philadelphia, St. Lucia, West Indies, and Baltimore. He then briefly spoke in fluent Spanish, shedding some tears. "I'll find even greater beauty in the people that make up this wonderful diocese," he said. Bishop Lewandowski offered his gratitude to retired Providence Bishop Thomas J. Tobin and former Archbishop Auxiliary Bishop Robert C. Evans for the pastoral support they've given him, and also expressed his appreciation to the Holy Father for the trust and confidence placed in him through this appointment. He recalled meeting Pope Francis during a bishop's orientation course in Rome. "He let me hug him. It was just a memorable moment," he said, asking for prayers for the pontiff's health. Since 2020, Bishop Lewandowski has served as Auxiliary Bishop of Baltimore, as well as Vicar for Hispanic Catholics and Vicar for Baltimore City for the Archdiocese of Baltimore. He thanked Archbishop William E. Lori of Baltimore for his friendship and guidance for the past 5 years that he has served there. "It has truly been a blessing in my life to have served in the Archdiocese of Baltimore." On April 8th, Archbishop Lori told Catholic Review, the publishing arm of the Archdiocese of Baltimore, "Although we shall all keenly miss his presence and ministry of Bishop Lewandowski in our midst, it must be said that Pope Francis could not have chosen a better bishop for the Diocese of Providence. Throughout his service here in the Archdiocese of Baltimore, Bishop Lewandowski served the people of God with zeal, fidelity, and love." And he goes on to talk about synodality and all the rest of it. Bishop Lewandowski was very active on the migration issue. Very, very, very active. He's a fellow traveler and ally to Robert McElroy. These decisions are being made with the current presidential administration in mind, at least in part. It's amazing. And they're moving very quickly. I expect to be talking to you next week or the week after about more appointments to the U.S. bishops, because there were something like 24 of them retired or should have been retired. But you know who's still sitting there, despite being of the age to retire? Cardinal Supich. He's 76 years old. Mandatory retirement age for a bishop is 75. Now, of course, it's mandatory with the asterisk. On their birthday, their 75th birthday, they submit a letter of resignation to the Holy Father. The Holy Father could choose to accept it or not. Supich submitted it to Francis. Francis just sat on the letter because Supich is one of his best allies in America. I'm curious, though, what you think about this. So let me know in the comments, please. Pray for these bishops. Again, I'm not here trying to rile you up about them. Pray for them. And when it comes to Robert McElroy, pray for justice. And pray that the truth emerges on all the things coming out about Robert McElroy. Let me know what you think about this all in the comments, please. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. So does sharing this on social media. That helps too. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.